Welcome to Growth Rings for September 18th, 2025. This is a wonderful, every couple of months, no charge event that the Center for Coaching and Organizations sponsors. We bring in a raft of amazing speakers, facilitators, coaches, leaders to share wisdom and invite wisdom because there's always wisdom in any group of CCO community that gets together. If you need closed captioning, welcome, Michael. Good to see you. There is a bar down at the bottom of your Zoom, and you can invite that in. Also, you'll see that Jason has his note taker in operation, and he'll tell you a little bit more about how he uses that and how that can be available to you later. Most of you know this already, but for anyone watching who doesn't, CCO is a 501c3 nonprofit. Our forte is really excellent coaching education training that's credentialed by the International Coaching Federation, the largest professional association of coaches in, I'm going to say the universe because we aren't really
Hmm.
sure about other planets, but since we don't know, why not claim it? Um, we also do an annual summit, and we also have events that pop up now and then. And we've got a series of wonderful ones coming up. So if you're local to the Twin Cities or you're happening in, you can join us for our annual community bonfire. That's on the evening of October 10th. And we welcome everybody, whether you've ever graduated from one of our programs or attended one of our programs, you're welcome. We also have the Coffee Connect, which is a Saturday morning get together in person to talk about whatever. This is an agenda free community conversation zone, and that's from 10 to 11 on the 11th of October. We're also starting some breath work with Helen Burren. And actually, Casey, do you want to say anything quick about that?
Sure. Yeah, I've been attending breathwork at the Center for Conscious Alchemy with Helen for a little while now, and I know a bunch of CCO folks have been there with me, and so we wanted to bring it to the west side of the Twin Cities. And so we will be having the very first event on November 2nd. It's the unique experience, and you walk away feeling wonderful and clear. I would
Mm.
encourage you all to try it.
Thank you, Casey. And then our next Growth Rings is November 20th with Cindy Wilcox. It's called Practicing Wisdom, an introduction to wise leadership.
Mm.
And Cindy's a really interesting person who takes from almost like cultural anthropologist and then the most emerging thought and puts it into, I love the word alchemy. She's a little bit of an alchemist and offers it up and invites you in. So I encourage you to join us in November for that Growth Rings. But let's get to today's Growth Rings because before we started this recording, people were sharing what their happy place is. And I'm going to hazard a guess that those of you who are watching and some of you who are here, if I were to say, is sales your happy place? You would go, no, this is not my happy place. And yet, as coaches, and as Jason will share, we have a unique ability to approach this a little differently. What I want to tell you about Jason, some of you have already met him. He's been an amazing host over the years for the ICF Minnesota chapter coaching awards. He's had an incredibly diverse background. And as many of us know, when you take a little bit of performance art, a little bit of media specialty, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, you stir it up with some coaching, and basically what you get is Jason. So lately, he's been doing communication and business development, and he has a special niche with fractional leaders um, and sales teams. But he really takes sales into a different, highly relational, highly conversational, highly evocative space. And his approach really allows us to build businesses that in my way of saying they're kind of built on integrity and goodwill and they're solution focused and they're value add, which is all about what coaches are into. So I'm going to say, I'm going to keep it there, even though I could tell you about him being a talk show personality on CCO and all sorts of things and doing wonderful things in Australia and the UK and so forth. But I'd rather get to it. So I'm going to say that I enjoyed Jason as a colleague. I have been very grateful to him as a friend for many years, and I'm very excited to share him with the CCO community. Take it
Mm.
away, Jason.
Oh, thank you, Bev. That's an awesome introduction, and I've enjoyed our friendship and connection for a long time too, through the various evolutions of things. And I'm really excited. I've been wanting to do something with the Center for Coaching in Organizations for a long time, and so when this opportunity came up, I was really excited. So I'm really happy to be able to be here with you all and to be participating and sharing and creating some insight together. So first, let me just establish a couple things about what we're going to do today that is going to be different. So today we're going to participate in collaborative learning because what I do in everything that's coaching our signature, everything I do is always a collaborative learning environment. So it's set up so that we can learn and gain insight from each other as well as the material and be able to integrate it. Because I've come to recognize that it's the integration is actually what gets us the results that we want, more so than even the breakthrough of the insight. It's the integration that follows and how that is, right? So today we're going to be doing a collaborative learning. So what does that mean? So that means that I invite you to be as fully present and engaged in what we're talking about and thinking about and doing right now as possible. And to support that, I'm going to be providing you a guide. Bev's going to put that in the chat. It's a link. And so all the things that I'm showing you how to do today, you will have a step-by-step guide later that you can go through and work your stuff in so that today you can feel free to not take notes because I have an AI, wherever it is on the screen. I have an AI that's recording all the notes on this, so you don't even have to remember that part. You can go back to that, ask the AI questions, all that kind of stuff, right? So really, you can just be really fully engaged here and really wrap your brain around the lenses that we're going to be talking about because we're going to be talking about selling in a different lens than you may or may not have heard before. Okay, so just kind of getting really clear and present around this so that when you do go to that guide later on to create the value for yourself, to improve your ability to get better results in terms of enrolling clients, more clients, the right kind of clients, that you're just all prepared to work through that and maximize that guide. And that's the purpose of today, is for this to be integrated enough for you to do that. We couldn't do all of that in this session today, but we can set it up so that you can do that. Also, what's going to be made available is my scheduling link. Now, if after getting into this and you take a look and you want some guidance or you want to discuss deeper any of this, I'm happy to make 30 minutes available to any of you to visit and go deeper in this coach to coach. So happy to do that. I have a fundamental belief that the more successful coaches we have in the world, the more transformation and awareness there is in the world, and the better the world is. So now, let's go ahead and dive in. What I would like to start with is could you please share with me in a couple of sentences what is the most challenging part of your sales conversations, or what do you like the least about the sales conversations you're having? So we're going to be focused not on getting the leads or anything like. We're going to be focused on the conversation when you're talking to the prospective buyer today. So if you could just share with me, like in a couple of sentences, so what is it that is the hardest, or the thing you're like, not this again, or that I don't like about this, or that you wish was easier? What would that be for you?
Yeah, and feel free to unmute yourself because it's always lovely to have the voices in the room.
Yes, I love to verbally hear from you than the chat because I can't really monitor the chat while I'm doing this. I'm
But
looking
right
at all of
now
you.
in the chat, Casey has said money. And I would add on to that that sometimes for me, I can do the whole conversation and evoke a lot of awareness, but then asking for the order, so to
Do you
speak.
mean when you say money, is that negotiating the money, like getting to the place of like of what you're going to charge or what you're going to ask for?
For me, it is um, I don't know, I can have a really good conversation about whether we're a fit or not and those sorts of things. And then when you get to, and you have to pay me too, and this is how much it is, those
So
sorts of
like
things.
that part gets uncomfortable. Like
Yep.
I want to be of service and now I got to talk about you paying me and then the discomfort arises. Is that what you're
Yep.
saying? Okay,
Mm.
yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. Who else?
Jennifer, you want to speak out what you put in the
There,
chat?
it's all in my head before I even get in front of the person. Like all the worry about doing it right.
Mhm.
Like where am I, selling too much or pushing too much or not enough or not trying to, I hate the word close, but close to even get to the point of it, the ask, like Carla just said. So yeah, I think it's all up front before I even leave the house.
Yeah,
All
like what
unknowing.
dance am I going to do going in this? Right? Yeah, and feeling like they're always different.
Um,
Good.
I'll throw out there as part of the close, not tying money to the number of sessions that we're going to have, but to the overall value that the like how can I understand better from the client like what since I want to make it value driven or outcome driven and not like price based, like
Hmm.
how do I get to like the price is X, but the value is Y?
Right. Right. Yep. That you're doing this for this outcome, and this is the investment. I get that. Okay, great. That's excellent.
I'll throw out another one real quickly. Um, Even though coaching is so much about the client, in sales for coaching, there's a certain amount of who am I and what do I offer. And I
Hmm.
find it so much easier to shine light on other people and their gifts than in the moment to be comfortable. What will I be comfortable saying about myself?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, good. That's real common, even with consultants too. Yep, definitely.
And I'm just going to say, for those of you who are off video, totally respect that. But Russ or Alexa, if ever you have something to offer, just pop yourself off mute or throw it in the chat and would welcome your voice in those ways.
Yeah, we welcome your presence in the discussion. It makes it richer. All right, anybody else want to share? Nothing's mandatory here, so it's a safe space, but okay. So even if you didn't share, and those of you that did, I invite you to listen for the answer to that in what we're talking about today. Okay? Because it will surface, it will come up in what we're talking about today. So what I want to do is I want to begin by giving you a little bit of context. So before we get into it, so the first half of this is going to be more of me talking, and you're going to do some reflecting, and then the second half we're going to get into discussion and workshopping and like kind of work integrating this for understanding, and that's about how the flow of this is going to go. So the first thing I want to talk about is why. So this was positioned as like we're going to learn about adaptive conversations, and I'm not here to explain to you. This is taken from adaptive, what I call adaptive conversations, which is an approach to selling, and this began, gosh, like 10 years ago when I thought to myself, I want to create a coach approach to selling because what selling is about creating awareness in the other person so that they recognize, oh, this is a solution to my problem or to help me get to my aspiration. That's what this is that's sitting here in front of me. And that whole thing is an awareness conversation. It's not like, do you have an itch? I do have an itch. Oh, I've got 10 ways I could scratch it. Like, oh, okay, well, good to know. And I'll let you know if I ever want to do that, right? And then it's like, well, why are we getting weird? I want to help you, kind of thing. And then we wonder, like, what are we doing wrong with sales inside of all of that, right? So it's really about how we create awareness. And what do we do as coaches? We are creating awareness all the time for our clients. It's the big value that we're providing. Now, what's different is that what's different in this is that we're creating the awareness to nurture the motivation for them to take the action to begin working with us. So the breakthrough in our sales conversation is signing the contract, making the commitment, is putting the money down. That's the first breakthrough because that's now the action that's going to lead to the experience, the process, going through that with you to get the result that they're wanting. So that's what it is, not the actual thing that they're talking about, but the breakthrough is to make the commitment to move through into that kind of thing. So what we're shifting here is we're shifting from making the pitch on why coaching will be so great for you and it's been great for others to having peer level collaborative conversations and creating awareness of the value for themselves. So essentially what this becomes is you're facilitating them talking themselves into doing this and saying, I am in this conversation, I'm seeing I really could benefit, this will really help me do my thing. And we know we're doing it well when they start saying like, you know, wow, Carla, I could really see how if I was coaching with you, I'd have this, I'd have this, I could do that. And as the coach, we're going, yes, that's all possible. Yes, that's true. We're just agreeing with what they're saying about us. We know that we're doing it well when that is happening, and that's part of the experience. And what we're going to talk about today is like the specific path on how you get there. So that's what we're doing. So let's take just a moment and talk about why traditional sales breaks down, because that's the context we're moving from. We all have some idea or experience of what sales is based on all kinds of bits and pieces of traditional sales models. Okay? So let me I do have a few slides that I'm going to put up because that'll just be easier for discussion's sake. Okay? But we're not going to be real slide heavy here. Okay, so where we see our biggest breakdown, especially in selling coaching and consulting, it's the same kind of thing, is when we're going in and we're trying to convince them and we're trying to pitch them on why our solution is great. And here's the thing that's really important about that. It's not difficult to get agreement from our buyer that our solution is great. Where the breakdown is it great for them and what they want to do? And that becomes the disconnect in that traditional approach, right? And the other part is what we pitch to is this idea that we're all told in the basic fundamentals of selling is sell to the problem, sell to the problem. You know, so what we end up doing is the moment we hear the problem, like, oh, I've been overwhelmed. Well, let me tell you about overwhelm and what I can do about overwhelm and what I've done before and how it's been and how would that be for you? And they're like, well, that would be interesting. And we're thinking, just interesting? Why is that just interesting? Like you just said it was overwhelmed, right? And so we did get to the problem, but what we didn't get to is we didn't get to the context and the experience and how they relate to the problem because it's inside of that. The other thing that we often default to is over-explaining our process. This is where we're selling coaching. Like, coaching is the thing, and coaching will do this, and coaching will do that, right? Like they're buying this product called coaching. They're not actually buying a product. They're buying a future result for themselves that coaching will facilitate. That's what they're buying. That's what the investment is made in. And it's important to keep our intention and our focus on this because this is what guides us in what questions we ask and where we go with the conversation. Also, like chasing agreement from buyers, right? So this is again like where we're trying to create agreement that we're great and coaching's great, and we'll get that agreement all day long, but it won't necessarily lead to I want to sign the dotted line and start an engagement because that's a different conversation, right? So we want to be specific. What are we looking for agreement on? And that is sharing a reality around what is the problem, what is the challenge here that needs to be addressed. What does it look like if coaching is applied? And what do they imagine that will be like if we're successful? And so that then puts it into the imagination. Now they're having an experience because I don't know if you've ever heard that the brain can't really differentiate like from a dream to your real experience, like it's always all real to the brain. So in that context, think of this. If we're always creating that future result in the imagination of that client and they're feeling it based upon the imagining what that's going to be like for you, what does that become for them? It becomes real. It becomes as real as the pain of the problem. And when it becomes real, now it becomes the tangible product they can buy because they have connection to it. Absent that, when we just talk about the problem and how good we are at it, right? That is not creating that it's not creating that reality for them. And so we're going to be in a process similar that we do in coaching, in co-creating reality. Only what's distinct from a regular coaching session is you're leading that conversation. You're leading that awareness for them to recognize in a very intentional manner, knowing that people have emotional stuff to get past, to have the courage to be with a coach and be that honest and do the work that they need to work. Because as much as we are excited about the outcomes that coaching creates, people need to be willing to go through what they have to go through to get that kind of thing. And then the last thing about traditional sales is this idea of asking buyers to tell us what they want. Like, what do you want? What do you want this coaching to do? And in one breath, that might be like saying like, well, why wouldn't you do that? You don't want to just tell them I'm going to come in and do this to you. Certainly understanding that, right? But what I'm talking about is when we're not actually leading and we're saying, well, I'm here, so, what do you want? And they're like, I want this. And we're like, well, coaching really won't work to affect that, but what about that? And we try to change the subject. And they're like, oh, nope, that's not what I wanted this for. I guess we're done. And you're like, oh, and then you're trying to explain and help them understand why that won't work, which is a go nowhere conversation. Like that is not going to lead to a sale whatsoever. Instead, you use your relevant, vivid questions that help them discover what they really want in the moment from the coaching, from what's available, what's really going on. And when you help them recognize that, then they see the tremendous value of the coaching that came because they weren't able to see that before they talk to you. And that's where your credibility shows up. You don't even have to talk about your resume and experience or your certifications. It's like they experienced it. And then you move them through those conversations. So this is basically where the breakdowns are and where we're making shifts to make a difference there. So let's talk about what we're actually selling. Okay. No, that's not what I wanted. Why is it? It's not matching. The pictures aren't matching what I'm grabbing. Let me just try this. Oh, wait. No, it is working. It's just I'm getting confused with my screen. Pardon me. I'm having a little techie breakdown here. Here we go. What we're actually selling. I have been putting in. It's just it didn't put it right in front of me. So the question is like, if we're not selling coaching, what are we actually selling? Okay. So we're selling clarity about the situation and what they want to solve, like confidence and clarity and assurance. Because we were talking about even this morning in a networking event that we were having about, right? What people buy, what there is to tune into and market to that your leaders and organizations that want coaching around, it's like, look at what is uncertain for them and what is scary and uncertain for them. And this is where we want to position. What's scary and uncertain for them? They're going to want to talk to you about those things because those are the things that are bothering them. And those are always the things to find out about what's going on in their teams, internally, externally, whatever that is. And coaching is an amazing remedy for anything that's scary and uncertain because it gives you ability to process that out and to go somewhere with it. So those conversations are about creating those clarity around that situation. The other thing that we're selling is trusting our leadership to guide them. This is where we wonder, well, as a coach, am I leading? Am I the leader? I thought I'm just helping the leader. You are leading because you're leading a process. Even though you're using an inquiry-driven process, you're leading that process. And I, the buyer, am going to trust you to take me through that process. And when I buy in and I trust you, like from this conversation, Bev, I feel really confident I'm going to get there. What are we going to do? I'm ready. Like, I'm just going to say yes to whatever you say that this process is going to be and how this is going to go. And then you are going to show me, like, here's the process. Over these sessions, we're going to be doing this and that sort of thing, right? So there is leadership that's in there. And that's the very first, that's what sets up everything else. Like, so that when you get to money and you get to the money part, it's not like, oh, wow, oh, money, gosh, right? It's like, I trust you, this makes sense, and if it fits the budget, we're going to go ahead and do this, because that confidence is there early on before those more kind of logistical kind of things. And then the last thing is their willingness to follow your leadership. That's the coachability. Are they willing to actually be coachable and actually participate? And how to do that. So this is what we're actually selling. And the reason this is important is because this is where we're putting our attention on. This is where we're telling our body and our mind to ask questions and do, versus, remember, the old way of like, I'm just listening for the problem they have, and then we're just going to talk about that and try to get them excited about that. And if I'm excited, they'll get excited. Now, let me tell you a little side tip about that. Like, what our buyers don't want is more excitement in the sales meeting. They have excitement, too much excitement in their life. What they want is calm assurance. They want to feel co-regulated. They want your calm leadership to come into that space. And so that when you leave, they go, I feel calmer when I'm in the room with Bev. That's another giant value to your coaching that us coaches like totally undervalue. And it's impossible to sell because nobody knows it until they experience it. However, if you're practicing providing that experience for them, there will be way more people that will be booking you, not because they listen and view their lens of everything that you're saying and what you're talking about through the lens of this, like, I feel calm and relaxed when we're like sorting this out, like we're in this space to do this together. So that's fundamentally like what we're looking at, what we're doing, and why we are doing it. And we're going to be getting to the how. So let me just talk about now the four critical sales conversations. And this is a framework that I want you to think about how your sales conversations are going to go. Okay. So the basic critical sales conversation for those selling to organizations are your referral and introduction generating conversations. So your ability to basically convey your value, the focus, the problem you help solve, so that you're easy to refer and introduce as those things arise, when they arise. The other conversation is the awareness and buy-in conversation. And I'm focusing on this today because this is the most important part of the conversation. In all of them, actually, in the referral and introduction, and in every formal sales conversation you're having, where they're considering your coaching, if the buy-in doesn't happen here, it's likely not going to happen when you're scoping it. It's not going to happen when you're talking about the budget. It's not going to happen at any other place that you're going down the road, right? This is what sets up those things to move smoothly, for it to go smoothly to the finish with clarity. That's why this is really important. And I would urge you to think of this not as, how do I squish all this into an hour? But give yourself the freedom to take the time you need. The other thing is to slow down. I'm a big advocate of life in the slow lane. Everyone is moving too fast, they're too distracted, they're too busy, and no one is really thinking. And if another big value as a coach is you can say, let's breathe and slow this conversation down and take the time we need to really be aware of what we need to be aware of. So let's say you have an hour set up and you're talking to your executive and you're talking about what you would do in that coaching engagement, and that conversation goes deep and goes a lot of different areas. And let's say it takes you like 45 to 50 minutes to actually get to the place where you're really clear on what they want to do in that engagement, what they want to change, and what they feel motivated. Because remember, all of this awareness creating, these questions you're asking, we are nurturing motivation. We're not just getting excited about a problem and what we can do, we're nurturing their motivation. So we're uncovering what they're motivated to act on and do for themselves. And then we're continuing to ask questions for them to find more courage to act on that motivation and move forward. And this is what gets you closer to yes without manipulating or trying to get them or tricks. There's none of that here. This is purely organic, discovering that with them collaboratively, and then very asking intentional questions to be nurturing that as they get more and more present to how they're being limited by not doing anything about it and what's possible if they take action with you and do something about it. Okay? So this is what we're focusing on today, and that's the most important. And so what I'm saying is let's say you spend 50 minutes and you only have 10 minutes to kind of scope it and budget and talk about price. Do you do that? Do you just push ahead and hurry up? No. Never, never, never. You always say, I see that we're really running out of time here. We've got this clear. Let's schedule another meeting, and then let's go and figure out how we're going to do this engagement, and then what the budget would be and how that would be. So let's go ahead and get that going. And you move that to another conversation. And let me tell you, there's what often comes up is people's like, oh, but what if they don't what if they don't show up at that next meeting? What if they don't want to do that? Or what if this, what if that, right? One thing I've learned is that, like, if we're doing our job right and people are really motivated and engaged in what we have and the value, they're not going to skip that next meeting. They're going to show up. They're going to show up every time if we're putting our focus there and doing that in the best way possible. And the other thing is, if you go from one meeting like this, where we had this breakthrough, and then we're going to go to the next meeting where we're going to dial this in, the anticipation of how you're going to do that works in your favor. They're wondering and excited and curious. How is this going to go? How am I going to get what I want? If we do this on the other side, right? If we do this on the side where it's like, I rush through it, so you get everything you got, now great. Now you go think about it. Now they go think about it, but they weren't enrolled in the whole back half. That just got rushed through. That's going to work against us. Because we know how our own brains work. Let's say we go to the store, we're really excited about buying, like, I want to get a one wheel so bad because they look so fun, right? But I go to the store, I'm like, not today. And I leave, my excitement to buy turns into, it's probably dangerous, and my kids run it, they're probably going to crack their head open, and I start talking myself out of it. This is natural and human for all of us, and we can hate it or like it, it doesn't matter. But this is naturally the entropy that our brain goes into. So we just know this is what we have to work with, okay? And so I want you to give yourself the freedom to slow down your person and give them the experience of slowing down with you, because they will experience tremendous value in, I can breathe, I can think, this feels spacious, right? It literally bends time for them. They'll feel like they spent so much time in comparison and contrast to the experience they have day to day. And this is another value that you're giving them that you're not talking about. It's not in your line item, but how I feel when I'm with you, how I feel when we're in the same space. Because remember, as coaches, it's not just about the questions, it's about the space we hold. It's about all of these other intangible things. We can't market them, people don't get them, but when we demonstrate them and we embody them, everybody wants to hang around us. They want to be in our space. It's one of the reasons I love going to coach events, because it's like, I'm in coaches vibes. Like, this is just the best, right? That I'm not just generating by myself. The last one is proposal review. So if you're doing a setup where if it's not like a simple, like, if the proposal isn't pretty simple in terms of like, you're going to put them like an executive coaching package where they're going to say, all right, we're going to do 6 months, we're going to do this many sessions, that sort of thing. It was pretty straightforward. You could do that in a meeting, come to an agreement and get that through. But if you're doing something more complex, where there's other people involved, or there's teams, or this or that, and what that's going to do, then you're going to want to have a proposal be able to actually then walk them through the proposal to ensure that you have alignment that you had in the meeting previously. Because the other thing that I want to emphasize is that the meeting you're in is the meeting you're in this time. And not everything changes, but people change. You're not talking to the same person that you talked to a week ago. We're all slightly different people. and we think slightly differently. And our lens on things can change in all kinds of different ways between that and now. And our trap is when we assume that, well, we were on the same page then, we'll be on the same page now, and we charge ahead. If we assume that things may be different, let's verify and establish. No one will ever criticize you for taking too long and dragging this out. Instead, they'll be assured and impressed by how thorough you are and have more confidence in your process. So slowing down has a tremendous value that you will provide. So now, before I get into, let me just quick and check and see where I'm at in the presentation, because I think we're going to do a little check-in with each other and just evaluate here what we're thinking as soon as I pull up my Word doc. There it is. Okay. Yeah, so this is where I want to start. The next place that I want to talk about is, what we're going to do. Then the next thing we're going to do now is we're going to get into these awareness creating conversations. Like, how do you prepare for them? And then how do you conduct them and how you have them? But before you do that, I just want us to take a moment to process what we just heard and what you think, how you feel about it, that sort of thing. So if we could do, Bev, a breakout room with paired shares, and we could put 2 minutes on the clock, and I'd like you to like share for 1 minute, each take a minute to just be sharing, like kind of be sure what's coming up for you. Like, oh, this is great, or I don't know about this. Like whatever is occurring to you about what you're hearing and how it applies to you is what I would invite you to share together in this just paired share moment.
Okay, and we might have a group with 3, but I'm going to create rooms, and if I need to, I will move people around.
I love it when everyone comes back smiling. Now I can't wait. So, who would be willing to share with a larger group? Like, what did you come up with?
And I teach undergraduate. Be aware, I will call on you. In fact, I'm going to call on
Right, you will.
Yeah, I'm going to call on Dr. Emily.
Professor Bev.
You
Being
know I love
voluntold
you.
is not my favorite, but I'll go. So the example, so I had the opportunity to talk with Russ and sharing about a workshop we do around workplace stress and team resilience. So it's part education, part experience, but really helping teams reimagine some of the stressors in the environment and how we can make shifts to make it more sustainable. And so this was a really helpful framework. We've often talked about needing to be like, well, what's the key that we're really trying to convey? So it was awesome to be in a position where I actually had to put some words down.
Yeah, great.
So 2 things that came up is this idea of creating awareness that simply pushing through and not doing anything different is actually quite costly in terms of turnover, absenteeism, burnout, and just stress amongst a team. So getting them to see some of the hidden cost of just status quo, doing things the way that they've always done it. But another important part of our intervention, and we do this at a team-based level, is that getting this idea that stress isn't just a personal problem. And I think organizations often their well-being is very focused on the individual level. What can we do to support or give you apps and things like that? But to consider what's the responsibility or the collective experience as a team and what can we do differently? So it creates some of that shared ownership rather than it's just on me to either figure it out or find a different job.
Yeah, that's great. So what I hear in that, Dr. Emily, is if we brought that down to just a few words, what I'm hearing is that they need to be aware of the impact that team stress has on the desired outputs from the team. Like
Yeah.
how it affects the quality of work, how it affects the timeliness of the work, how the effects on that.
Yeah.
So in your conversation, to really get the value of that workshop, they really need to recognize that by not addressing the team stress, the outputs, the current challenges with what they want to achieve with that team are likely not going to get resolved.
That's great. Thank you.
So when I phrase it, when I put it in that language, when I phrase it that way and bake it down to that, what do you hear in that, or how do you hear it differently?
Could you repeat that, Jason? I was typing my notes.
No, I was just saying that, remember, this is all being recorded. Just be present, please. You don't have to write anything down. It's all being documented here. Is that whatever, what I was asking you is like, now I reframed that in a tighter way as a singular objective. And I'm wondering, when you hear me repeat it back to you in that singular objective, like this is what I need for them to really understand from my questioning. How does that, what lens does that give you, or how does that look or sound to you going into the conversation?
One, it provides more clarity, but I think it also provides more impact, both in delivering that, but I think being on the receiving end. I mean, it's very clear what we're highlighting or hoping that we help them highlight or see the value in.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's excellent. The importance of getting this like really baked down. So this is not something to have a paragraph. They need to be aware of this whole paragraph of all of these, because that won't actually help you when you're in the moment. In the moment, you need a simple phrase knowing like, I need to keep asking questions so they recognize this as your own guide, right? Because we only have so much CPU power, right? So we want to keep those simple. And of these awareness pieces, we're likely, all of you are, I swear everybody, like you're going to have like 3.
Okay.
For what you're doing in terms of the primary value, the primary motivation, where your sweet spot is, they're going to be like 3 things, not a dozen, not 6, but a few. You want to drill it down to the primary ones and do the work and the research in and around that. So that's a great example. So now what I want to do is I invite everybody to take what you've got and try to bake it down into just a few words to get to the essence of what they need to be aware of, right? Like this was getting to the essence of team stress. So now we're going to move to the next part. The next part is we come up with the actual questions that are going to inform that. Okay, now I'm going to give you an example. So remember, we looked at, as one of our examples for executive coaching, is the awareness of the limits of self-reliance, the limitations of self-reliance. We want them, they need to be aware of that it's like, great, okay, good. How do we do that? So here's some example questions that can bring that awareness out in the conversation. What challenges keep resurfacing even after you've already put time and effort into solving them? Oh, well, there's this thing that keeps coming up and there's that thing that keeps coming up. It's like, oh, I get that, right? And then they share all what that looks like to you. And then the next question, again, going deeper, because we want to take time to go deeper rather than check the box. Like, yep, you have multiple challenges coming up. Well, guess what? Our program helps with all of those challenges. Right now we're switching over to selling to the problem, right? We're not letting them get really in touch to it. So we're going to go deeper. This is where this starts to get really effective. When those challenges resurface, how do you think your team experiences you in those moments? Ooh, reflective. Let me think. This expands the lens from the issue to the leadership signal, the reaction, the holistic experience of it for them, and starts opening some awareness around that. And then they share whatever they share about that. And then we continue with our third question, where we really go into the kind of the depth of it and get connected. If those dynamics continued for another year, what do you think the cost would be for you or your team or just what you're trying to do? Now they're thinking about like how they keep repeating, and they're actually now getting present to the cost. And doing this is like you are shining the flashlight on these things for them that they can go ahead and then get present and then have it become real for them. And so then from there, you can take the conversation where it naturally wants to go. Because now we're in the topic, we're in the space, like clarity is there, like, oh, this is really costing a lot, right? So it's like, so it could move into like, does this feel like something that would be really valuable to address? Yeah, I do feel like it would be valuable to address. Why do you think it would be valuable to address this? I mean, what do you think that you'll get out of it if we were to focus on this? Well, I think, right, you see where this is going? They're starting to make their own case for themselves of seeing the problem and then recognizing your solution, and they're putting your solution together with the problem and imagining the outcomes of that. So this is a neurostrategy sequence of questions, or what we call an adaptive sequence. So now I'd like you to go back in your rooms again. Let's do another breakout. We're going to do another 3 minutes. And I would like you to each come up with 3 questions, or as many questions as you can come up with, up to 3 in that time. And then we're going to come back. We'll share a little bit, and then we'll do some Q&A and a debrief.
Okay, we're going to go back hopefully into these same rooms. Have fun and help each other out with questions.
So a couple of things to keep note of in the chat. Bev is going to be putting 2 links. One of the links is to the guide where you can just download it right to your desktop so you can work with this after this session. The other one is my link if you want to schedule 30 minutes with me to go deeper, or you're in the guide and you're like, this was easier when we were talking about it. You can schedule 30 minutes with me, and I'm happy to give you that to cement and solidify that. So who is willing and courageous and wants to share the questions that they came up with, and I can help support on those questions a little bit, just in terms of some reflection with the larger group. Who wants to share their questions and their awareness piece? Or is willing? Maybe nobody wants to, but who's willing? To be brave. My shy coaches today.
Well, I could ask Dr. Emily to choose someone.
Yeah, right. You get to volunteer someone. I can't help you get these dialed in if I don't hear what they are.
Oh, she just popped herself off mute. Oh, Casey, are you volunteering?
Well, we kind of focused on Michael's thing, and so maybe Michael and I can do this together. I actually only remember the last question that we came up with that was related to the future. And
So let's start with what you're creating awareness about. So what are you creating awareness for the buyer with these questions? What awareness are you creating?
So I am working on a business lunch, and right now I tend to focus with people who are navigating a change or something uncertain in their life that maybe
Okay.
was not anticipated. So the awareness I was trying, I really struggled with these questions, especially being newer and trying to focus. The
And this
first,
is hard. This is just a hard
yeah,
thing.
yeah. So I said if I were talking to someone outside of coaching because they called me because they just had a stage 4 diagnosis or something like that, I would just say, I would start with, where are you right now? What are you carrying? You know, explain that to me. And because I tend to find that no matter what the big shock is, there's just so much overwhelm, and you think you have to get to the end of it right away and solve it all. It's a journey. It's not solved. But so that was just the awareness of when you're in the shock moment, there are steps and tools and processes that help you. When you can't change what happened, you can change how you show up and how you navigate it.
Sure. Okay. So in the interest of time, because we just have a couple of minutes,
Yeah.
Michael, is that what I'm hearing inside of that is what they need to become aware of is how much they're being limited by the experience of the change which they're going through.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we want a set of questions that are going to illuminate those limitations that they're having. So if we're going to have a question that illuminated the limitations that are created by the crisis that they're in, what might be a broad open-ended question that could start them down that path?
How are you feeling limited by this change in your life?
Okay, that's a little bit too specific. So,
Okay.
and it's also telling them that there's limitations. That's in the
Got
space
it.
of explaining. So I'll give you an example. An example would be, it's like, so Michael, have you noticed as you go through day-to-day life that anything is different about doing ordinary tasks?
Yep.
So what's going to come out of that? Like, well, yeah, I forget stuff a lot and things seem harder and I'm really confused more frequently. Aha. Now we're getting to that. What's that like for you? What is that like for you? It's like, well, it's kind of frustrating. And they're getting into it. You take them into that sequence and then
Yeah.
they recognize, oh, I see. And you help with this.
Yeah.
And see, that's where then it opens up the motivation.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So that's an example of how that gets. And thank you, Michael, too, because this coaching is really important because everybody's at where you're at, Michael. Everybody's kind of like, all right, I'm taking this, this is a new thing. I haven't done this, right? And we're kind of putting this together in order to take something and then give it like the context and the specificity without being like, this is what I want you to think
Yeah. Thank you.
in the question.
Thank
So that concludes the program for me today. I'll hang out for a little bit. I can hang out for a few minutes, up to 15 after this is over. If you have questions, you want to discuss anything, happy to do that. My links are in the chat. And thank you very much for the opportunity to play with you and to learn together. Appreciate you.
And let's all come off mute and give a round of applause to Jason. But let's also,
Received.
I would love for a couple of people to either in the chat or in taking yourself off mute, uh, share with the group what's something of value you're taking away from today.
I'm just going to say that I feel like I have an entry point into thinking about this differently.
Thanks, Casey. And Michael says tools for thinking about the entire process in a new way. And Dr. Emily said being clear on the awareness you are hoping to illuminate for them. Catherine says, slow down. Dr. Emily says, agree, how we make them feel. Yeah. Yeah. So I want to say thanks to all of you, a special thanks to Jason for sharing his wisdom and experience with us and for making it so clear how a coach approach to evoking awareness can support our prospects and us in creating wonderful partnerships moving forward. So thank you, Jason. Um, also want to remind you there are all sorts of CCO events, both virtual and in person, and you can find those on our website, on our social media, and also you can sign up for our regular-ish newsletter, which is just that. It comes out pretty regularly-ish. So thank you. I'm going to stop the recording and we will call this a wrap for Growth Rings September 18th, 2025.
Thank you.